Good day, Gappas. We're going to do a follow-up to our series ibonds video. We're going to cover the series EE savings bond, often referred to as EE bonds. So what are EE bonds and why do you care? Well, they're bonds issued by the US government directly to retail investors like you and me. Essentially, think of them as a longer-term fixed rate CD, but with an interesting benefit. They are guaranteed to double in 20 years. Say what? That's right. If you bought a $500 EE bond today, in 20 years and you cash it in, it's going to be worth $1,000, even though it will pay an annual rate of 0.1% until then. And I think that's the catch. I don't think the government thought that through because, well, most people get these bonds, they stash them away, and they never see the light of day. And then they finally find it and they're like, oh, hey, this thing's like 25 years old. Let's cash it in, right? Well, how does the doubling work? They do a one-time adjustment to fulfill that guarantee. That's a pretty interesting deal. Well, you might be asking, well, how much can I buy? You can get an EE bond for as little as $25 or as much as $10,000. Like the series ibonds that we discussed in our other video, you are limited to $10,000 per year per person, which means Social Security number. Like the series ibonds, you can keep them for 30 years as they will earn interest until that age. But, I'm cashing out at 20, but whatever. And like that series ibonds, you can cash them before 5 years, but you lose the last 3 months worth of interest. Now, that I mentioned that series ibonds, how do the E-bonds compare to them? Well, I have a $100 ibond that I bought in the later part of 2003 in my younger years. It's now worth $185. So in 19 years, it got close, but it did not double. Even with inflation running high and the iBond paying over 8% today, but in 1 year, by year 20, it would not have doubled. Very close, but it didn't. So when you want to compare the EE bonds and the I bonds, look at the benefits of each. Now, the EE bond is tax exempt, just like the I bond of state and local income taxes. And the education tax exclusion permits qualified taxpayers to exclude from their gross income all or part of the interest paid. In other words, like the I bond, it's tax exempt. All the interest is tax exempt. Now, the only difference would be the I bond can be used to buy your first home purchase. EE bonds don't have that benefit, but they both have the higher education benefit. So, where do you buy an EE bond? From the Treasury Department in electric format. You cannot get them in paper form like you can an I bond if you were to use your tax refund to buy an I bond. One cool thing to know, if you watched our I bond video, is that you can combine the EE bonds, the I bonds, and the tax refunded paper I bonds to purchase a total of $25,000 worth of bonds. So you have 10,000 EE bonds, you have 10,000 I bonds, and then you have 5,000 of the paper I bonds from a tax refund. 25,000. I always thought you were maxed at Treasury Direct for bonds, period, at $10,000 a year per Social Security number. That's not true. I can do 10 grand in E bonds and 10 grand in I bonds. Oof. Or hey, you can even open a trust. You can purchase even more in I bonds, bringing your total up even more. It's pretty crazy, right? They don't talk about this stuff in school. They don't talk about this stuff ever. No one has ever talked to me about I bonds and EE bonds. It's crazy. So you may be asking yourself right now, well, do you buy an EE bond or an I bond? I think it depends on your situation, honestly. If you already bought your first house and you want a long-term investment that'll guarantee to double, say like for retirement, I would go with an EE bond. If you're young, in your teens and early 20s, and you're just starting out, I would go the I bond route. Why? Because you're not going to probably keep it as long as an EE bond. You can use it for education and first home. So that's how I would split it in my mind, and that's how I've done it. Now I have grabbed some bonds back in the day just because, but majority I bonds. Well, if this is your first time to our channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Check us out on all the socials. We search for stock caps or bust, and in some cases, like today, we're talking about other things like bonds. Or hey, sometimes we talk about hot rod trucks. Well, we'll see y'all later. Peace.